that to attain such a state, we must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. But to perfect those trainings, we need to have a really thorough understanding of what is implied, what it is that we need to train in. And we gain that by being able to learn from an unmistaken source. And so it is with this in mind that we are privileged to listen to a talk today from the great text called The Bodhisattva's Way of Life, as composed by the great master Shantideva. And so, as usual, also then we begin our teaching with the setting up of the visualization. The figure in front is in actuality our root guru, but in aspect that of Shakyamuni Buddha, seated in the Vajra posture in the saffron robes of a monk, with one face, two hands, one in the earth touching mudra and the other holding an alms bowl filled with nectar.
Range tagodoya rala tinchebe takanja seti pamane chebe ani chikasuda pamesemche taganishe leg onge ditone ranki wo rantone tikibu megenge tangarazo chitamebe ta marazo chikasuda dasich del tsube takanja taibe magesemche tanja masawa meba yu sanzo kombacha.
And all around us we visualize all kind mother sentient beings, from our parents to our relatives, friends, those who are neutral to us, and those through the karma that we have accumulated together appear in this aspect, in this life, as enemy to us. And so we make sure that we have all the sentient beings included there without exception. That all of the sentient beings that we are visualizing are denizens of the 6 realms of existence, undergoing the various sufferings there. But for the purpose of this, they see them as having the perception of a human being like us. And so they are looking towards the figure that we are visualizing in the space in front. In actuality, our own guru, in aspect, the Manindra, the Shakyamuni Buddha, and proceeding with the triple faith, the faith of pure faith, the manifest faith, and the faith of conviction.
이게 좀 세다 두개 혼래 아니 왜세 빠도 매버 튼 아니 싱람자 내배 아니 가서다 20바 다 온라다 제바 젠타 20바데 또 투배 온보 넘바 젠타네 또 투배 온보다 팀 아니 가서다 가서데 온래 온고 출라마 제조데 내발래 아니 저 미게 오고 좀 되게 참고든 조금 봐셔.
And then again, focusing on the central figure of our visualization, we see the figure of Shakyamuni is marked at the crown with an at the throat with an A, and at the heart center with the hung syllables. From the hung syllable at the heart, light rays emanate, and they go out into the pure realms, inviting all the wisdom beings and the empowering deities from those realms. The wisdom beings come and dissolve into the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, and the empowering deities confirm the nectar of empowerment, which overflowing at the crown spontaneously produces the figure of Akshobhya. And that this figure of now that we have visualized of Shakyamuni Buddha is the embodiment of all Buddhas.
아니 되네 라마 투베 옹볼라 아니 가서 구송투게 연대 제베 거네 아니 다외다 와 이시게다 모두 그때 봐 이거 아니 랑게 타고니 심제다 탐자라 아니 지금 아니 대화되자 대화고 미드바 동네르데 아니 배 가서 다 그저 직접 니트는 답에 못는 용되겠지 안 대화되자 대외 주좀 뭐시 미드바 동네르데 동네 주빵 마시 봐 원게 다 같이 코하고 주되겠어 딜레 가서라 베베 다 같이 가서라 다 같이 지금 동네에 나줄라 삼네 닝제 아니 대화되도 그 참바 아니 근데 동네 전에 대화도 토바데 아니 배 해치기 삼선 학습 아니 근데 제가 저도 랑게 제마도 보다 세버려 다 수제 두고 그랬을라고이나 아니 다 되나 요배 아니 다 지금 탑지나 투제 좀 못되면 아니 또 마샤자 또 봤다 콩게 나 두고도 근데 인바자 심제 탐제 산제 공부 저 마주나 콩게 공부지 내봐도 마주나 다 탐에도 대시 좀더 와이나 아니 뒤제 감다 몇번 삼번 발을 내봐 치다 와시도 걔가 요바 인사 다 나제 공가 다 심제가 돌을 주고도 주주도 와다 된다 제때 콩콩 뭐도 타면도 서로 어디로 공부시
And so then from our point of view as well, we contemplating all of the enlightened qualities of the enlightened being that we are visualizing gives rise to that pure faith, that faith of conviction, and that manifest faith in our own minds. And that we also then contemplating all of the sentient beings all around us, we really understand how desperately they want suffering, want happiness, but they are bereft of that happiness. And how desperately they want to avoid suffering, but seemingly just one after the other, continuously, they have to experience this unwanted sufferings. And we realize here that, even though they want happiness so badly, they are ignorant as to the causes to give rise to that happiness. And though they want to abandon suffering so badly, again, they, being unaware of the causes of the suffering, are unable to fulfill that desire. And so here we contemplate the sentient beings that we are wishing to place them in happiness and in the causes of happiness. We generate this sense of love, loving kindness, this sense of affection and love for all sentient beings. And in contemplating how wonderful it would be if they had, they were able to free from suffering and the causes of suffering, we generate compassion for them and wishing them all to be free from that suffering. And following on from that, then we develop that special intention to take a sense of personal responsibility for this, not just to leave it as an aspiration, but to do something about it. And when we really look about to see from what position are we best able to benefit all sentient beings without exception, without discrimination, it is very obviously the state of enlightenment, the state of fully enlightened Buddha. And that so therefore it seems to be a logical conclusion for us, and also the inevitable conclusion that we must be able to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's only from that perception that we are aware of the right timing to act, the karmic implications of that, the various dispositions and personalities of all sentient beings, and knowing, just really what is the right thing to do. And therefore, we again set our minds to really definitely seeing this as an inevitability, as an obligation to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings.
What is compassion? What is chat? What that Karsoleta Sanjay Goma Jubalata, Kanjaji Lamla Lakura, Lamla Labalata, Kanjaji Karsoleta, Kanjaji. Nianju Jansa Yanda Tawala Lakura, Timal Tamya Machava, that the name by Zada, Kasbovata Dilla, and Janjuga Simple. What? Janjuga Simple Cola, and the Casa Janjuga Simple Deleta, Kanjaji Kasora, 다 간제说다 그래서 돈자 선제다 구조 선제 나나다 구조 선제 제说구조 선제我的다 간제 준주我的그래서 톱자 산제 공부 주변 체도 다 그때 년 유여서 뒤체도 다 자주고 선제 맞게 관의 공도 폐체 년 유여서我的공부상 세체
And so this state of enlightenment, the goal, as it were, that, of course, in order to attain that state, we must train in the path that leads to that state. And along that path, the development of a realization of renunciation and the mind of enlightenment itself and correct view, of course, are indispensable. Here, today's teaching is about generating the mind of enlightenment. And here, with regard to that, there's the conventional mind of enlightenment and the ultimate mind of enlightenment. Here, we are concerned with generating the conventional mind of enlightenment. And so just to remind ourselves, that what is it that is to be won or attained, it is the state of enlightenment. What is essential in order to be able to attain that is the development of the mind of enlightenment. Somju Sochuk and the Niba. Juksem le topala tebala song. The Juksem gi pen.
다 가서 면생을 표현도 좀 잡았죠. 좋아. 면생을 좀 잡았잖아. 뭐 다간제 다간제 저거 산제 공방 그다 뭐좀 타부터 두바 지금들 멤버스 좀 개바 임바 이나야다 표현 봐도 매번 요 되겠지. 가서 송차이 봐. 다 송차 다 어떤 전다 가서 되고 가서 되다다데. 계속 좀 시원하게 맞듯이 되네. 어디 송차받자. 다 니보다 주심 레토베 표현을 숨자. 다 간제 가서데 산제 송 도나로라. 다 배친가 도다 된주나로라. 다 간제 다 가서데 그게 장주가 셈께네. 다 가서데 장주가 셈께베게 근데 소남데 수고 임바이나 아니 직된 감들 쇼가 말했어. 직된 감들 쇼가 말했어. 다 간제 가서 소남가 게데 데라 수치나 다 게데 수 임바이나 난게 감네 군자다 직된 감다가 난게 감다지 참네. 다 간제 마쇼와지. 대 하고 좋은데 그래서 다 간제 타이어와 주요래서 다 간제 레 다 가서데 된데 장주가 셈께베 표현 수 임바다 다 가서데 난게 감들 마쇼와지 배. 자체 뭐 주요래서 어디 송구도 그래.
So we have been looking into, according to the explanation from the great child of the conqueror Shantideva, the benefits of the mind of enlightenment. And so he's been demonstrating these. We have, to a large extent, covered the benefits of the aspiring mind of enlightenment. And now we will enter into looking at the benefits of the engaging mind of enlightenment. And here, it's like when we talk about benefits here, and in general, and in Sutra, it talks about the benefits of generating the mind of enlightenment, saying that if the merit generated through the generation of the mind of enlightenment were to have form or shape, the world itself would be not enough to contain it. The world and all the space would not be enough to contain it. Another way of saying that the merits accrued through generating the mind of enlightenment are limitless.
어떠한식의 도땡에지 개불래 도땡에지 개불래야 아니 저거 산재의 신 빠도 매발라 아니 배 최와 빠도 매발 표바다 다 표시 쉬우지 여러분 Dile and Semjela Jabakomati in the period check this.
So another comparison is found in the King of Concentration Sutra, where it speaks about if one were to make offerings to all the Buddhas in all the realms of existence, that would be absolutely incredible, of course. But even greater than that was if one could generate a mind of love for all sentient beings for just a moment. That would be even greater.
Tengazi Jabonala, and the Sanjay Sing Tayabala, and the Chuba Patu Mabacha, and the dear Caso Chuba dear, that you thought that is people in a Dutch pay, Shujugurata, Sing Kabacha, pay Patu Mabaya, in a young, and the Caso the Jambe Semla, and the Dogmaris, Jambe Stem de Tape, Dileshidan Hagayukuris, pay, Dileshidan Hagayus. That is Shuja, that is Ungarata. Mongbe on the machine on get that hard to do mental. Tanguna did you need to the Simba in that? Cook up the Shuju or cook up the Shuju.
So, even more detail, they're saying that these offerings, if we were to give all these offerings to all the Buddhas in all the realms of existence, if the offerings themselves were limitless in number, if they were of the greatest quality imaginable, the merit there would be absolutely incredible. But even greater than that is the merit gained through the cultivation of the mind of love. And so here it's saying that, it's amazing, isn't it, that if one is really truly aware of this, it's like it should be seen as an unbelievable opportunity from our point to generate this love, to generate this compassion, to generate this mind of enlightenment, and it's like, we say, oh my goodness, I'm still stuck in cycle existence because I wasn't aware of how powerful the merit is for love, etc. So it's kind of, this is the way we should respond to this kind of image.
And the Jamba the Ninja, and the Janjuga Samsung, the Juchijong Geja Yomare, Potomoy Geja Yomare, that Sui nature, because the same nature. Sui nature to each other.
And that, when we talk about love, compassion, the mind of enlightenment, the causes to generate those incredible minds, they are completely, non-discriminatory. There's no sense of a class distinction when generating these. There's no gender bias in generating these minds. There's no female or male kind of like a privilege in generating these mindsets. It's a question of the mind itself. To what extent are these noble qualities in one's own mind?
What did it do? Because of the Lubuton and Jetu Maduza, Yawatos, that was simply your day in some, simply your day in some. Tanga the Beju Tang Madame, the Beju Tana, soon the jet much, soon the jet much. That the Punetane, Casodata, Tanguishanata, Kangal Kugabuting.
And so, we make distinctions in terms of the bodies and the body shape and so on. But in terms of mental qualities, these qualities of the mind, there's no distinctions made. The only difference is whether one is using the full capacity of one's mind or not. And so it's kind of like, therefore, we all should see that we have an equal opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity to develop these inner qualities for ourselves.
What did the commercial? What did the set? What did the set? And then you done the deal, Casoda. What that and that Niva Casa Niva Juximle Tobias, Tebala Sum, when you sent the Tebatil Sumcheta, Nibatil Sumchet, Mueta, De Tebata, and Tobasewa watching subject Sum Condition. That on would let over Tangutella, Zawale, Joa Kunje, Kaveju, Simje Dunge, Sirjuba. Juba, Ranger Simja Sonanka, Della Chita, Shejilangs.
And so this second main outline then was dealing with the correctness of attaining the engaging mind of enlightenment. And this has three subheadings. First is the actual addressing of that statement. The second is why it is correct, the rightness of that. And thirdly, verses which are dispelling or eliminating doubts with regard to that. And so the first of these is verse number 26. How can I fathom the depths of the goodness of this jewel of the mind, the panacea that relieves the world of pain and is the source of all its joy?
Mesem that cousin sure member sem give a zamla and it give a zamya and to pay that judgment tie but your mother then the chewa pay chewa ina that cause of juba sem janata devasa that juba sem janata that kanja draw kunje that draw sem tamjeje and that want to da ngelegi dewa toba chebes rota want to da ngelegi toba chebe and a carry you rota 가서 타바다 탐제 캠베 다 타도 탐제 캠바 조예게 아니 지게 다 가자 탑다 원도다 아니 다 게레 타바 아니 다가리제 아니 타도 게 아니 게레 탐제 캠바 데데게 대화 토바 제베 아니 제바데 다 제베 아니 들어다 다 제바인자 다 데데 토바 이나다 아니 다지 문에다나 가와 다 갖고 있지도 근데 가위 규탕스와 또 군지 가위 규상 근데 가위 규탕자
And so we discussed last week with regard to the great benefits of generating the aspiring mind of enlightenment, and indeed they were very, very significant. But here it's talking about being able to lead all sentient beings to a state of definite goodness and of a fortunate rebirth. And that definite goodness here referring to the attainment of liberation, the state of enlightenment itself, that state of omniscience. And it's the means by which we can actually attain these states. And so it's referred to as this, the depths of the goodness of this mind, the cause of all joy, or the source of all joy. And so it's really this referring to the engaging mind of enlightenment here. It has this capacity.
다 간제 된데게 가서 랑신 니가게 돼 랑신 니가게 돼 타쳐봐 주테가 규치체도 왔다 되서 가위 규차도 주다 다 다가리세 가서데 셈제 탐제게 다 간제죠 셈제 탐제게 다 가져데 다 미드베 동에게 내 좀바체베 아니 맹기지서 맹기 뉴바 주바 주테기게 노부 다 간제지 베 가서다 다 린한테베 노부 린체사 노부 린체 다비우사 린체 다비우 아니 죽심 기 소남 강이 바데 죽베 셈 깨바된데게 소남 강이 바데라 체지다 셰기 랑사다 이 체다 잡투에 메데가 시달랑 다 지게나 빼요 말이 다 간자 시달랑데 장메바 오셔
And that the generation of this engaging mind of enlightenment is that which is capable of fulfilling the purpose of self and other. And so in this respect, anything connected with that is an incredibly powerful merit. And that here, the capacity like a medical antidote to all illness, like destroying the illness of suffering in all sentient beings. It's like this a wish-fulfilling gem. It's really an incredibly priceless gem. And it's here this mind, this engaging mind of enlightenment is, if we asked how do we calculate the benefits accrued by this engaging mind of enlightenment, and say it's really beyond fathoming, as it says here. How can I fathom the depths? Here it's beyond that. I'm saying, in other words, it's saying that the benefits are limitless.
간제지 다 간제데 되게 아니 저거 다 배유 빠도 매바치 여바데 다 간제데我他把都没把用个这是我的我只能我讲，但你把죽셈래是朋友托别太把你是个你把죽셈래朋友托把太把你早晚了，偏把三节章三节去来开把呢，三节马路他们这些点都怎么没去过。
The second of these subheadings was then the correctness of attaining the benefits from this engaging mind of enlightenment. And this is verse number 27, which states, if merely a benevolent intention excels venerating the Buddhas, then what need to mention striving to make all beings without exception happy?
他个这甚至他们这个短多打三节数九几200是偏把上把这个，但甚至了偏拖个一年上了的当把一年，这个上把上把这个讲，安呢这个年多他个说的多等个这个节目当。多等个这节目个过去属于嘛，我大概这新他们家了，确保康的新是了，三节个新他们家了呢，确保康，安确保康呢，安个说的大概这，确保八度没吧，康的配呢，安等这个给说基本当把这做了，安你这是都被对大多，安确保结巴人，他配八度没把人的地嘞，大概这。딜레 다 간제저 소놈 켜봐도 봐봐 요거레스 안 돌려 손도 왔다 또 공도는 어떻게
And so then so was mentioned in the King of Concentration Sutras here, if merely the thought to say I will attain a state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings is something which is incredibly beneficial. And that if one were to make offerings, offer all offerings to all sentient beings, to all Buddhas, it would be considered something incredibly meritorious, some exalted kind of like extraordinary accruement of merit.
我的讲，他感觉我的那个送的话是到就偏头也是没把咱们给吧，因为呢，他偏有八度没把这里有的，俺那什么马路吧，他们这个电话桥都这边，这都，俺那怎么修这边有啥，怎么修这边，俺那给这个交完了，老板一拿到，说那他也把中华的，他先过一会儿买了，没去过是的。
And so here, just in brief, a summary of the benefits of generating the aspiring mind of enlightenment. But it's saying, by comparison, really, there's no need to mention the mind that is willing to train in all of the trainings of the Bodhisattva and to put tremendous, intense effort into really providing supreme happiness for all sentient beings without exception. The merit related to that is completely limitless. It's unable to be able to put a number on it. And so it's kind of saying, by comparison, what need to mention the limitless merit accrued by somebody who is operating via the engaging mind of enlightenment.
我他感觉热的可是我说的第二来清说这个没把什么结吧伊呢安尼边就告诉了他感觉这个告诉的我这个旅店讨厌的第二个安尼边告诉的他感觉就告诉了他的还有安尼对边还有安尼边春节八对我把用的这个忙不就送说忙不就去把他我的是他等的就把什么给呢安尼这个绝把了老王对安尼他这个说的他感觉这个三节个原点这个的他感觉告诉的他感觉他可是三节个原点个安尼就这个的他告诉的他主把这样的安尼主把这样的人物嘛多吧他三节恐怕他不多人物嘛多三节恐怕他不多我说他我听了安尼的嘛多边把的来安排这个可是旅店开发这连接去 Lute Kabachi Yonte, Digger Chut, Tabat, Tamji Kembeki, and Tungela Trotte Yontikwa. Yontikwa, what?
So like yesterday, sorry, last week, we covered the benefits relating to the aspiring mind of enlightenment in some detail, comparing how superior they were to the beings in the desire realm, the celestial beings in the desire realm, etc., etc., and really got a good sense of how wonderful the merits are related to the aspiring mind of enlightenment. But here we're talking about merits on a whole different level, because now we are actually engaging in the trainings to actually attain the state of enlightenment. We've entered on that path now, and we're training in those suitable activities that are continuously laying down the causes for actual enlightenment. And so here, that the merit related to the generation of these causes is really priceless. There's no number to be placed on that. I'm saying even without attaining the state of enlightenment, even along the way, we have the conducive qualities and conditions to continue in that vein.
Ta sumba doba sewa nesa zawa liam. Dungen dodu semye jang dungen nila ngobar juus. Dewa duja demobe rangi dewa chata choms. Kanshi dewe pongba dungen mangden deta la dewa kunji tsimba dungen tamche juche ching. Demo jangne sejeba dedan kesu kalayu. Dende shejan kalayu, sunam denda kalayu.
The third of these subheadings, and the final one, is the dispelling of doubts. And this is covered in the following three stanzas, where it says, starting at verse number 28, although wishing to be rid of misery, they run towards misery itself. Although wishing to have happiness, like an enemy, they ignorantly destroy it. For those who are deprived of happiness and burdened with many sorrows, it satisfies them with all joys, dispels all suffering, and clears away confusion. Where is there a comparable virtue? Where is there even such a friend? Where is there merit similar to this?
Rwa ta kache chige semjeng de la ta kache de zön gogu res zön goye jumse kares na semjeng khorang ge ngone ta kaso re chige ta kache che khorang kaso re chidang de sanje ri yore miba yorde yena ya ta kache miba yorde yena ya miba beju tang ha do la to dende yesa semjeng de la zön go de semjeng nam la sa 동해 도둑의 섭지가 동해 미도가 강가차 되어. 요래 동해 도둑의 셈 요래 아니 그 녀모배 상황도 치네. 동해 중 마치 맞아 녀모배 온게 아니 동해 주바시 두든 대화 두고 두었다 대외 주도 마시 미도가 동해때 동해 주빵 마시 맞잖아. 안데네 인사 그 동해데 그 주도다 용구 여름에도 주마주는 동해 용구 말와 다 데네 인사 주도 사지 아니 동해라 나와 요 말 걸리는 거 거치보로 와 대자 동해 주바시 두배 아니 될까서다 동해들 믿으면 다 그저 좋아다 그 용되거든 안디에다 아니 디야 좋아라 소배다 근데 믿어봐 용되도 아니 무트는 용액이야 주주네 다 가지고 저 제바 주도 용화 주도 단테스들 요봐 다 가지 근데 주 무트는 코지 엔드 맞아보자 타마 맞아보자 무트는 용되지 용되게 도왔던데 이봐서 그래서我딱 그저 탐해봐 페트로 탐해봐 차트야 근데 이봐서 아니 근데 녀석이 동행이라 뭐버 주바 다 근데 이제 아니 근데 디바 톱쳐 보사도 아니 다 녀석을 계속 그러다 그러 녀석이라 뭐버 주어라 주주여스 주라사 졸라 어디 밀트르슬라다.
So saying here, pointing out the necessity of working, striving to fulfill the purpose of all sentient beings. What is the reasoning behind this? And so it's here saying, if you look at sentient beings, we all want to avoid and to really be done with suffering. And yet we are under the influence, our minds are still very much under the influence of mental affliction. And so instead of being able to rid ourselves of suffering, we seem to be continuously creating the causes of suffering, and then the causes of more and more suffering. It's really, again, the issue of ignorance, of really not knowing what are the causes of happiness that we so much want. Therefore, we don't go about accumulating those causes, and also the ignorance with regard to the causes of suffering, something that we don't want, and so we never deal with them directly by abandoning, overcoming these causes, avoiding these causes, with the result that our suffering is continuous without end. That if we create the causes of suffering, then we can only expect a suffering result. There really isn't any choice about it. And so this then eventually leads to kind of the results of the powerful negativities that we have accumulated, and that is a rebirth in the lower realms. And so it's kind of like here, instead of, as it says in the text, instead of avoiding the causes of suffering, it's like we are running towards suffering.
년송의 잠세어 말이야. 답변은 가서 미 개와 렘버이다 가라도라 미드베 동에 멍부지 헛가 용되기도 와. 로이드 마셔 동에 멍부지 용되기도. 용해디 헛되면 지금 헛대 때문이나다. 지금 가서데 가브리 주주고 조사 매고다 가브리 아니 지금 출로를 주고 좀 되지. 면도 랑게 레그 온게 멍바 마리베 온게 레사 레디 남셰던도 바자샤 다 깬다 태원도 아니 제부도 연구도 삼사 rollo 차두고면 도 남자 깬 나가라라 주고초네 아니 미가 왔제네 아니 양조 냐솔로 게다 양조 무튼데 동네 디나시 와 주좀 대되기도 좋아 문에잖아 어디 동네에 나를 동네 나라라 연구도 나라라 연구 레 미제바다 미제 제바 취미서다 동네 나라라 연구 아니 녜 레사바트 제와 차되고 요래 삼사 아니 나 레사바티 녀mombe ong lesa namche to bajaasha ta chilo kenji cheonde ani ngala da dungwe de nyongu yore samta ngocho to gumo do lamja ken dagara gui so la simne ani ngozo khade cha jagre ja mitu bachen de de yorba mitu bachen de de yorba ta odire ta kaja to mutu ni dungwe ju ju de ali ngozo milu len de ba ine ngozo neche de dangi mudo.
So again, I was pointing out, this is not only related to rebirth in the lower realms, but of course, in human rebirth, also we are kind of mired in this confusion of suffering continuously. And because we really don't know how to go about dealing with suffering, it only seems to kind of perpetuate the suffering, because we are continuously then adding on the causes of suffering. And so it's kind of here we have to be able to understand that when suffering arises in the mind, we have to be able to relate that to something that we are responsible for in some sense ourselves. That in terms of the karma of the situation, we do not experience the results of karmic causes that we do not create ourselves. And when the karma is laid down, it does not simply disappear of its own accord. That there are imprints on the mind that then, when they meet with the conducive conditions, those imprints, as it were, awaken, ripen into an experience of suffering. And so we are ignorant with regard to this. We don't know the kind of this kind of background to our own suffering, and so therefore, we kind of continuously seem to point to external conditions as the cause or the blame for what's going wrong in our lives or suffering in our lives. And there's this constant reaction to it, laying down again further imprints to experience continuous suffering into the future. And so we have to really start, ask the question is, what is it that I find undesirable? And then to seek what is the cause of this undesirability, and to kind of look into how we can put a stop to this sort of like continuous motion with regard to the suffering that we are experiencing.
What is what to do? When I not 동해 소소로 연구유나 아니 주대 소소주와 차대고 여러 모두 현재의 야라티 자원이 요말 레 미제바다 미제와 제바 취미사와 소르와 디인자 코치 랑다 딱가제 그래서 랑게 뭔가 말이 배운게 레사와치 다다다 제분 연구 요바치 이내 개출로는 용초그래 개출로는 용초그래 데레 어 용초그래 다디레 이내 개디 아니 교육 조월을 지네 아니 야 모든 데는 동행료에 뭐 유튜브 되기도 와 뭐 통제도 해야 되고 점블링 나로 다 통제도 해야 돼 랑파자 시에 수정 kanka 통제도 해야 돼 차되기도 와 어다데 어디를 다데는 인자 어다 내가 가서 마시베 오기 몽베 오기 대화 되자 대화 유튜브 마시 미드바 동에 육빵 마시면 오기 용되게 열어 용되게 열어 다 네가 가서 다 못쳐 봤잖아 다는 어다디 숙청도 당 돼
And so, first and foremost is to understand the relationship between myself and the suffering that I experience. And here it's very, very important to really own the suffering, to understand that because suffering doesn't occur like chaotically, that we do not experience the result of something that we haven't created the cause for. So therefore, if I am experiencing suffering, I must have created the cause for this to come about. This is absolutely essential, and this is crucial. And so you have to own that as my cause. I created this. Now, of course, there are external conditions that lead to the arising of that suffering. That's true. But essentially, when it comes to the substantial cause, that is our own affair. We have accumulated that, and then this is very important to see this. And we can look around to see how this plays out in the world as well. Like when suffering arises, how it's constantly this finger pointing externally to kind of imagine a substantial cause external to oneself, and you can see how then the suffering perpetuates. And so it's important, from our point of view, that the first major step is one of recognition, of really saying, okay, this suffering is mine. I created the cause of this suffering. And only from that point of admission, of recognition, then that we can slowly reduce the impact of the suffering on the one hand, and start to address the reduction of causes for this suffering.
다가는 생기야 동네에 깨디게 가서 오다게 레사버리 깨 가르쳐 되는 말이 동네에 깨디 뭐쳐 왔잖아 동네에 깨디 뭐요 탑시에 지고래 디야 가서 리쿼드 투바 좀 전에 좀 돈에 아니 깨디가 뭐요 탑시에 마가 와디 페마리 콘도산의 페마리 다디 뭐요 탑시에 가르셔 남주고 돈에 아니 어디는 또 뭐요 가서 깨 맞잖아 가서 게임 하체 봐이나 아니 가서 사비에 깨투고요 말이 깨투고 말 깨라 되는 거. 깨한테 마요 답시 아니 가서 리페일 남네. 거 가서나 뭐유 근데 저 토마토네 아니 깨 셋업 전개 줍다도 제국으로 와. 야 레레스나 깨 주네 거세에 되는데 기자 말이야. 깨한테 각다 제국이요. 이네데 리페일 남네. 도대 무트를 동에 마요에 깨 각다 붙었네. 사람 봐도 동해 마요 깨 각다.
And this is not in any way to indicate a sort of a fatalistic approach to our own suffering. And that, yes, we have these substantial causes, like the root causes on our mind stream, laid down as imprints on our mind stream. But we can do a great deal about the cooperative conditions. And this is important to kind of really recognize this and to proceed in accordance with reasoning. To say, okay, if I put myself into this sort of situation with these cooperative conditions in place, how likely it is for suffering to arise, and so on, or unlikely for suffering to arise. So we have to make kind of these judgments from our own point of view, and so kind of have the main premises for suffering not to arise. So this is where we kind of really need to use our intelligence. So we know the substantial cause, the root causes are there. I must ensure that they are in no way activated. So therefore, I need to be able to really control the cooperative conditions, and that this is something that we can be proactive about from life to life to life. We need to be able to take a kind of a proactive approach to this. And so basically it's to avoid this saying, oh, it's my karma, can't do anything about it. No, he's saying you recognize what you can do about it, and to proceed in accordance with intelligent reasoning, to bring wisdom into the equation, to do everything you can to reduce not only the ultimate suffering, but also temporary reduction of suffering as well.
아니 가서다 탑 중마소나 따고 탑시 매버리 탑시 매도 아니 콘로다 마지바 마제바잖아 아니 오 아니 가서다 다 간제 저게 가서다 당도 라네 아니 디 아니 타입에 마제 섬제 타면 레니바 사바데 녜디 고쳐봐쇼 섬다 탑시 매버 잠레도 되 뭐더라 다 배나 나사 중안에 매사 암지 야고대 탑시 가요 제네 타마들라다 and Sagruata, because was a Pumbo de limitation. Kansasuna, Kaya Tapsi Mevachi Yungurwa. That thing you got the top? But that Tapsi might give a Machavan, Ticket give a Tamachiwa. That the day you buy in that top? Simply Shangle, Lenya Basaba, Karioba in there, and yet the Kochava show. Some what did they? Taniship and a Zamlin she did. And it's only marked to that they can purchase carry you by net. Someone did a net, Nasa, you better corner water somewhere, then take a net to judge the carry you by net, and then take a land about the net, the coach of a show. Now she went and she would show that now I Nagucho was young show. Takaja, the Casoda, Takaja, don't let me go to the church and Takaja, Mikey or Machi, the church with 2 years. What did it? Takaja, Tapshi carry about the chair, Magada. Control our dinner, my image, and we can do it. Namshina, Narazu Tapshi, say you are it. And then that happened that day, so the music Tamakisha, then needs to condition by now. Did you go by Nisu Mambu or what's a million Tapshi can make a Nisu Mambu, so the musical condition in it might give the control Majavachan and tea and the church between yellow vegetation. What did it? Tambu Tapshi check. Tama Marina.
And so, of course, when suffering causes have been activated, in other words, the suffering itself has ripened, and so you're right now experiencing that. And then what needs to be done? And so it's kind of like here, the first action is to do everything one can to avoid any anger arising or depression, kind of like a deep unhappiness or anything arising from there, and then to really seek the Dharma route out of it. And that really centers on, first of all, a sense of acceptance of the actual inevitable suffering that you are now experiencing, because the causes have actually reached the ripening stage. So there's nothing you can do to avoid the feeling of pain and suffering now. So acceptance. And then you can actually up the ante significantly by taking on the kind of the mind of enlightenment attitude to think about all sentient beings who are undergoing a similar kind of suffering. May their suffering and the causes of that suffering ripen upon me now. I willingly take that on. And that here, in looking into world conflict, to worlds where there is a war, the coronavirus causes itself to take all those on in the taking and giving on the breath meditation, to really take on the causes that lead to all of these horrible situations and the suffering that ensues from that. May it all ripen upon me right now, and to really as genuinely as possible take that on. And so indeed, whatever the situation is, that is something, anything untoward or unpleasant arising like that, again, first avoid any sense of anger, frustration with the situation, and then seek the Dharma route out of it.
어들 공부해도 어들 동행이 너무 어들 다 간자 다 간자 근데 맞아 봐이나 다 말아줘 남주 저거서데 다 남주 저다 전에 다 저거서데 모두네 안에 동행 주의가 다 동행 줄을 못데 모두네 동행 중앙도 이 안저 모두네 동행 주주네 대들라 동행이 너무 봐 주고서 주토부레스 어들자 다 대화 되장서 다 대화 되고 요때 대화 되자 대다게 탑을 먹으셔 다 대화디 그 영화 쇼 대화 잡고 용해지 말아 거기 리듬에 줄을 납고 요와 아니 근데 임바 인자 대 탑라 안 대화 두게 탑을 먹네 먹시 아니 근데 먹시가 자 데모베 랑게 대화 다다 좀다 마시 먹배 오게 대화다 중에 중어 마시 받잖아 아니 가서데 안 다까지 대회 가서다 가서 데모베게 랑게 대화게 아니 주디 아니 소소소소 자는 시잖아요 좀 되겠어 자다 좀 배웠다 저래 소소소 내고 삼자다 증거 요마다 몽배 온게 마시베 온게 대외 주 마시베 온게 아니 대외 주 털라다 되거로 좀배 취지 아니 가서다 대도게 탑라 로바슈바다 대외 대화 되거다 대화 맞죠 미도바 동을다 동을 용된다 로바슈베 어떻게 좋은지도 왔어 치료심.
And so it's really kind of saying, okay, this may be a lot to ask for from ourselves, but we have to ask what is the alternative? When suffering arises, do we continue as normal? And then, really, kind of really submit to the suffering itself, allowing the door open to the mental afflictions that will only create causes for continuous perpetuation of that suffering. Really, is that a choice? There really isn't any choice. We have got to address our response directly and to kind of be honest about it. Now, it further goes on here to talk about the other side of the coin is that we all want happiness, and so kind of really quite desperate in our searching for that happiness. But again, through ignorance with regard to the means of of generating that happiness, specifically the causes of happiness itself, it's kind of this unknowing with regard to what are the actual causes of happiness. And so because of that, it's as in the verse it says, like, we treat happiness like an enemy and ignorantly destroy it. And so this is something like then when we look at suffering and happiness, our attitude to that is completely twisted. It's like we have the wrong attitude with regard to avoiding the former and establishing the latter.
되게 셴바질라 야라치서 촌에 말했다. 대화 두베데 랑기 균의 용대지. 동해 용해데 랑기 균의 용대지만 또 셴바질라 주구조서 싸워니는 매개지. 주구조서 싸워니는 매개지. 다 되네 임바 이자 다데 가리 랭거서 딱 먼저 몽바디 세고요와 동에 주가림바 ngotwe 동에 주가림바 ngotwe 대외 주 가림바데 ngotwe 전에 아니 동에 주 빵답지에 대외 주 줍답지와이나 다 아니 대부 대화 쓰게 됐다 다고 라와 요마르다 가서 주마사 오면 봐 주바이나 대부라 라와 요마르 거기 가서 산제 송다 계좌 봐 가서다 내절로 좋아 뒤 죽나 뒤 용거래 뒤 맞죽나 뒤 용거 말해 뒤 용한테 뒤라 때는 중국어 요래 다고 그 내절로래 네 어디래
So here, yeah. And so this sense of, it's like the word is like confusion. We're sort of like caught in this sense of confusion with regard to what really leads to happiness, what really can avoid suffering. And so therefore, really recognition, kind of to train ourselves, to get the education in how suffering and happiness are really produced, and to recognize the causes of both, the causes that we must establish to really have any guarantee of happiness, and the causes to abandon if we want to really guarantee avoiding suffering. And that, to understand too, that once the causes are established, then the result has no power but to come to fruition. It's not like, it depends, there's some sort of doubt around that, or there's some question that the result itself has some sort of choice as to whether it will ripen or not. No, if you do lay down the causes, then you can expect that kind of result. And that's clear. That's a natural law. As it says, like, if this is produced, this will follow. If this is not produced, then this will not follow. And so this is like the karma of the situation. And it's very, very important for us to recognize that our happiness is our responsibility, and nobody else is responsible for our happiness, and that's our own business.
다 가제 저게 가서래 대화 정말 대외 규모 대화 모임 거지 다 대화도 가서 대외 유튜브이나 아니 대화 용 되겠지 가선 딱 먼저 드레보 대화 되다 먼저 되고 요다 딜레 개체와데 아니 대외 유튜브에 돼 개체와 대외 유튜브 봐이나 드레보 라와 매버 용 되고요 드레보 라와 매버 용 되고 저 배는 거서 미디어 되고 요 말때 이내 미드베 아니 주 마사오 주원데 아니 미드베 동에데 장수 용데 어디 대바 사원이네 요 말때 그 참가자를 용도
And so if we if we establish the causes of happiness, then happiness will be what we will experience. This relationship is inviolable. Now, when it comes to placing the emphasis here, that as nice and as pleasant it is to experience happiness, what's far more important always is to consider the causes that brought that about, and the causes that will bring about any future happiness. Therefore, what's more important than the result is the cause, and to really set about continuously creating the causes. And likewise, when it comes to undesirable suffering, again, it's the cause that we must avoid. If we really, really are sincere about not really wanting suffering, we can't complain about our suffering and then do nothing about the causes, because that will only guarantee us further and continuous suffering into the future.
지금은 뭐라 가서 멤버 셈게 깨나 멤버 깨봐야 표현도 쉬우지 할때 멤버 셈게 깨봐 상게 산제 고마 두고면 도와 들 주고 셈게 깨고 도와 뒤 줄을 납고 도와 멤버 깨봐 제보 산게를 밀게 도와 밀게 도다 뒤 토베라 주 아니 주고 셈게 냠내 제고 도와 주고 셈게 맞게나 멤버 셈고 거 두고면 도와 거 가야 되고 도와
And so, in a way, we can relate this to the aspiring and engaging minds of enlightenment, as we learned that there are great benefits to connected to the aspiring mind of enlightenment, but they won't necessarily lead to enlightenment itself. We have to establish the precise causes for enlightenment, and that is done through the activities, the training in the activities related to the engaging mind of enlightenment.
Simjen Kanshi Dewe Pombata, Simjen Kanshi Dewe Pombata, and a Dunga Mambuda Temba, Dedala, and a Kasurata, Nega Buntuta, and Tatu Ngelek, Rota, Ngeleta, Tabata Tamje Chembasota, Rot, Tamje Chembe, Rota, Tamje Chembek, Kajaji, there were good Simba Chebata, there were good Simba Cheba. Simbachevata. And it don't have time, and Guncheva, Cheching, and Langdola Mobe, and Demo Guni, Sewache, Sewa Chebe, Jele Jenny, Sim Titan, Gawatsumba, Kalayos, what are the same to the Gawatsumba, the Kawayors? And can Simja Koranga to go your mother, that Matubati, and then Tuba Swene, and Tabata Tamji Lam Quakes. You can Lamla Lam Jetting that did it go so much the Kawaii or Scala.
And so then following these verses, saying here that these sentient beings who are bereft of the happiness that they so want, who are mired in a great deal of suffering that they don't want. And so here it's this mind, this engaging mind of enlightenment that can lead those sentient beings to the state of temporarily positive rebirth, and then ultimately to definite goodness, meaning liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And it's in this sense that they can be satisfied, as it says in verse 29. It satisfies them with all joys, and that here, this mind that cuts the continuum of all suffering, and it completely dispels the ignorance of what it is for us to take up and practice, and what it is that we must, the behaviors that we must leave aside. And so the question is asked in verse number 30. Where is there a comparable virtue to this? The mind that is capable of that, where else will you find it? You cannot find it except with this training, recognizing, first of all, that one must attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and then actually engaging in the practices, training the mind to actually lay down the causes to achieve that goal.
What the lay Maza, that Pente Trupin, Nova the job as that Pemba the Deva, that Tamje Trupin, Rada Trupin, and it Dilla New Digging, and it can't Tamja Pass Selton, job here. The Casota della Nova Le Jobias, what I think Pamata Deva to get a new digging guitar, Covetungeta, and Tagani she was charging breaking, and chalk Kangapa. Dele Jobne, Dele Tabachene, Tadu Sanjay combat Dende, that chicken, that Kibutilla, Dende with Shankalayota, Dende with shit, that Givation is changing, that Kawaii Scalayo.
And likewise, when it comes to of establishing the happiness and benefit of protecting from harm, and saying, what better friend, what friend is comparable to this mind of enlightenment, this engaging mind of enlightenment? What spiritual friend could compare with this mind, this engaging mind of enlightenment? Yeah.
Then the Taganishing and that Langdor Dungan, 로다 랑도 랑자 가리면 도자 가리면 다 타도 디기 주위에게 아니 내가네 타도 그 바가다 배 디기 주위에게 랑도 친지 말로 봐 덤베 아니 손남 된다와 아 생각을 유스다 들던 거에서 손남 된다시 가와요 갈아요때 매베스다 요 말이스 근데 이제 샘징이 돌아 중고소 시험하고스다 근데 이번 인자 다 운에 장내기 다 지가서래 다 미지 님보지 lem바이나 다 샘징이 돌아 전에 아니 저거 잠지 장주가 샘지 개바 지구래 수거다 좀 지구래 좀 지구소 시험하고
And then thirdly, in answering to where is their merit similar to this? And here saying, what other mind can demonstrate to us the kind of unmistaken approach of what it is we need to practice precisely, and what it is we need to give up in terms of our, behaviors and attitudes and so on, and thinking. What other merit is comparable to this, and saying this is the incomparable kind of merit that is available to us. And so it's saying that because of all these of these benefits, of the tremendous qualities of the engaging mind of enlightenment, and then this is the reasoning behind why we need to train ourselves in that mind and put every effort into it. And that means, it's kind of like there for us, not only to achieve their ultimate goal, but also it is going to establish the temporary happiness that we want as well.
시 가야 메딩 저다 간제 된대지 제도와이나 아니 소소 밀레게 받대 고쳐봐 소소 산제게 땜받다 제받대 고쳐봐 오다 미지니부터 들에 다 되면도 시 가야 메다 고트래.
And so if we're constantly asking, how it is that we can take the essence of this precious human rebirth, and the answer is to develop this engaging mind of enlightenment. There's really nothing better than this. This is the case. So, to make this life as a human being meaningful, this is what we need to do. To be able to make meaningful our meeting with the Buddha's teachings, and this is the practice that we should center on and focus on. There's really this encompasses all of what is the best. And so we should really concentrate on developing this mind of enlightenment.
가서라 지금 가서다 다가자 지금 가서래 미게 왔다 아니 지금 답변은 지금 가서래 지금 녀선다 답변을 둔두다 이다다 아니 지금 다 냐와 이다 둔둘라서 왔는데 깨왔다 미게 와 가서 미스게 깨왔다가 이제 미 남주디에다 쏘 들어와 남주디에 맞지 다 남주디 아니 배 땡기 또 디기 줍투와치 와 땡기 또다 그 땡기 디기 줍에다 그 좀세 하고 신고다 좀세 마시나 뭐저게 주도 못 쳐고면도 나라도 미강가게 대화 두고였고 열때 얘네 동네 주도 대화로다 그래서 남주도 마당에 오게 다 대해서 남주디 아니 배주 로가 많이 봐지 배주 양 다바지 땅 투에게 딱 간자 저기 제투한테 다 잔주가 셈 겁나 되면도 딜에 셔바지 민도 왔다 딜에 셔바지 민도 왔다 딜에 봐도 못 트네 아니 그 미지 추추 좀 와도 왔다 다들 미지 그들 하여만 하바디 아니 잔주가 셈 거 아니 지금 돈이 더 비싸라고 군조 잔주가 쓰다 돈다 셈제니 다 군조 잔주가 셈다 돈다 셈제니도 검체네 아니 네 검바디 아니 소소 미세티 안다 돈다 좀 차기도 와 그 사람의 사라고 봐도 다 디기 용의 주주급터도 다 딜라 가는 거. 잠불링은 미까지 저보 인사를 당가서 디 총이하고 여러 디 계좌 셰체 뭐 지지여 망체티 장부 샤바이나 다 무튼의 코알네 주중에 저티기 여봐. 저티기 여봐. 다 그래 다 가서 가서 통중 제바 말이야. 다고 그 뭐유기 내주고 tumbe 돈에 셔바는 거 육근에서 살아 대다 tumbe 대부 연구 있도. 아니 그 못되네. 다 코알라 다 빠미네 레스전 제가 다 디자서. 다 잠이제 장주성을 랑려다는 랑 야와도는 현재발 저거 열다. 얘네 들려되네. 다 라신이가 되네 대도 저 유튜브 되기도 와. 다디 항사야 받아 항사야도 와.
So here, the first, of course, item of business for being born as a human being is to really prevent ourselves from going into the lower realms in the future life. And so for this, we need to use our human intelligence. And so when we talk about that, we have to place the correct level of importance on this intelligence and to kind of like understand that human intelligence opens the possibility for us to establish not only temporary happiness, but more importantly, ultimate, definite, stable happiness into the future. And here, it's a question of really knowing well the causes that can bring that about. And that means really some analytical meditation into what are the precise causes that lead to the desirable results that we want. And so it's very, very important that we know this, because it's key to not really to being able to use our human intelligence, this great opportunity, well, and not misusing it, or worse, abusing it. And so it's very, very important then that to be able to see what's left of this life that we have. We asked the question is very pertinent now as to what is the best we can do with what is left. And there is no other answer except to train in the mind of enlightenment, be it the conventional mind of enlightenment and then the ultimate mind of enlightenment in conjunction with the wisdom teachings. And so this is kind of like the ultimate. This is what will stand to us life to life to life. This is what makes this life meaningful. And so, we hear, of course, those that are lauded in this world for being the great business people with great business acumen, or they are, really eloquent speakers, etc., etc., etc. But we have to ask again, what kind of causes are being created for the most part in that kind of activity? And the answer would have to be that they're just causes to kind of continue in cyclic existence. It's like, in terms of life, it's a business as usual. And that here, it's kind of like, to make ourselves aware of the actuality of things, rather than continuing as usual as a permanent resident of cyclic existence. This is very, very important. And when we hit upon the generation of the mind of enlightenment, be it like the aspiring mind of enlightenment, the engaging mind of enlightenment in its conventional and ultimate sense, there is really nothing better anywhere in any system that could fulfill the goal of both myself and all other sentient beings as well. It really is something that cuts across the whole panacea of life. And in such, as such, it is really something quite amazing.
아니 마저 양아사 닌제 첩이 담배 도제베 나버려 봐. 아니 펜바 중세 줘발래야 되버 왜나 아니 펜데 타야버 줘발라 체 나버려 봐. 신초도 줘발라 나버려 봐. 오체 숨체. 다 당부대 가서야 마주야 닌제 침베타네 도자바 나고 요바텔라 자왈레 펜다 렌데 간예바 대야르시 나외나 마주레바 제바이 자주 셈바 메치코체.
And so we move on into another set of outlines. Here, it's the praise for the person who habituates to the mind of enlightenment. And this is dealt with in 3 subheadings. The first of these is that such a person is worthy of praise in the sense that they offer help based on, motivated by great compassion, without being asked to help, without having to wait to be asked to help. The second of these is that if somebody who helps a little is worthy of praise, then such a being who establishes ultimate happiness and benefit is also worthy of praise. And thirdly, they are worthy of praise for being able to concentrate on the supreme basis. And so with regard to the first, they're being worthy of praise through offering help motivated by great compassion without having to be asked, is dealt with in verse number 31, which says, if whoever repays a kind deed is worthy of some praise, then what need to mention the Bodhisattva who does good without it's being asked of him or her?
Oh yeah, Nghe tới là chỉ đến cái cháu ta trong gia đình chỉ xem ba,因为样他不这个只đến cái cháu只要嘛是那个嘛的，嘛那钱，可是他感觉这当所做绿菜这都从家人那个来了，么不结果的话，因为样这个讲究个什，工作讲究是，多大什讲究个什结巴了，第几个这个嘛的话，第三，可是呢，他所第个的。세디 퉁게 두고 때 얘는 대자 마세 되게 그가 잠 이제 자주 그 심배 토네 가자 직된 그 자와 되게 돼 지가서데 자와 직된 자와데 제베 쇼라 아니 지금 대달 해도 아니 지금 자주 그 셈고에다 잠바도 닝제 고민했다 되게 돼용 맞춰게 말해 그는 나를 최기 개부 되게 돼 아니 개갑 정도 요다 디다 냠도 소소 냠내대 비다고 제를 주고 요봐 가서는 다 가서 된대게 가서도 잠바다 닌자라 소바 자주 그 생고서 된대게 아니 지금 냠래 라 도나 맞제 받잖아 배 체디랑 삼로 따라 더 좋은자 다 체디랑 게 내가 제 따가랑 전체 다 코알 못는 코대지만도 다 미진이보다 렌두고 뭐도 이나 다디 쇼도 아니 지금 최주배 튕겨 거두이네 고급 승진 뭐다 디제 되게 개체 모르셔서 뭐 쉬고도 연면도요
So just a word on what I said just now in relation to those previous verses, just to clarify that in pointing out, that those who are concentrating on business and so on, that any kind of worldly kind of affairs, it's not to dismiss these activities as being in themselves negative and therefore unappealing. That of course we have to one is acknowledge that we are in this world, that we need to make a living, that we are engaged in caring for the body and needing kind of shelter and so on. So we have to provide these conducive conditions for life. And this is involved in engaging in work, engaging in worldly activities, and so on. And so this is important. But what we are saying is that there is absolutely no contradiction to being able to engage in all these activities if our minds are combined with the aspects of the mind of enlightenment. Be it the conventional and ultimate aspects of the mind of enlightenment. There is no contradiction here at all, that we can engage in business, we can engage in other activities if motivated to do so. And indeed, it'd be perfectly natural to be able to insert our motivation in that way. And I don't think it would be any obstacle to our business or our being able to make a living, etc. And so, just to clarify there, and that the development of love, compassion, the mind of enlightenment is in no way contradictory to engaging in worldly activities like business and so on. It's really pointing out that if we solely, focus our attention on the creation of money and business and just worldly affairs without any kind of spiritual side to it, then we're more likely going to just create the causes to perpetually remain in cyclic existence and suffer and so on. So it's kind of saying here, and furthermore, one isn't really in any way focused on taking the essence of this human life that we have been so fortunate to gain.
펜달렌도 칸이 바티야 시나웨나 마출 레버치 자주스를 메시코스 다데 직대나 나 펜다발라 아니 렌도 바칸이 바티야 양다 가서 대양 제바스의 기부 이노샤 레다 즉 가서 제바스의 기부다디 소소 강내 제바 것도 생으로 과제보다 지금도 아니 어디 말 펜도 전부 중서서는 베틴 땡거와 제바스의 기부 이노샤 레싱가 버르나 근데 나빠 지금 열와서 근데 나빠지 그 되게 그 야보와 그 로바 지금 펜도 저 삼자게 아니 배 가오곰 제가 가서도 딱 같이 가오곰네 아니 저 가서 딱 나빠 줘다 되었다는 거다 야보 제유스 오늘 나빠 왜 말이야 근데 저 이거 연나 다 맞죠 봐다 파르와 맞네 아니 수 아니 월렌틀리 와다 가자 저야 아니 이제 챔피언스 좋아라 펴봤자 봐 대달라 레버 두버 제베 장주 선발랑 나봐요 봐 메주코스다 디시엠 거이로다 제다 가서 그 내가서 말이 봤다 봐도 가서 가서다 내가 다 타도고 된 탐지 안에 두버 제도게 딱 제베 제도 아니 지금 탐바 두되게 되게 장주 선발랑 나봐요 왜도 요소서 어떻게 셔보자
And so then back to verse number 31, which again reads, if whoever repays a kind deed is worthy of some praise, then what need to mention the Bodhisattva who does good without it being asked of them? And so here, again, pointing out any kind of a worldly situation when for, some previous act of benefit that somebody repays that kindness to us, and that certainly the one who engages in that activity is worthy of praise, and that's right and correct to do so. And it's just simply then by comparison that then you have somebody motivated by the mind of enlightenment, the Bodhisattva, who seeks to establish every good, every ultimate happiness and benefit through their mind of great compassion. And that they are motivated to do this without necessarily being asked. The one volunteers to engage in this kind of activity. Well, surely that kind of person is worthy of praise as well, as it says in the verse. What need to mention the one who is acting according to this kind of thinking.
nyamati kasade kibutabate anu kasada ritual samshu debakala ane tendege lumbege mimai tende takacha non human tende ani mila tune ani choba puga tende yoe lugu yore an tende choba puga ya cha ani te ngotene o tate miranda mare ta mitu de legitos ngotene ani karchen ngala tichigu yoslo o keran janju ge sem kom degedo janju ge sem kom dedo ani ngala rawa mitos 좀 합의나 라와 민도스 된대게 어떤 용어 딱 간절은 같이 집 가서래 다 된대게 셈제가 되라 뒤치도 다 가서래 지금 라와 매버잖아 다 구바드 찍고 되는 용 되기도 용 되고 요 어떤
So again relating these accounts of holy beings who are in retreat in lonely places, meditating on the mind of enlightenment, saying that there are many, many reports whereby they're approached by non-human entities, maybe in human form, and these entities are making offerings to them. And so the holy being in meditation is a kind of a, first of all, generating doubt as to the genuine motivation, and is saying, oh, this kind of person seems like a non-human entity. Why is it that you are making offerings to me? And the non-human entity would simply explain that because you are meditating on the mind of enlightenment, that we have no choice but to make these offerings, to acknowledge this something extraordinary, and therefore this is why we're powerless not to make offerings.
다 펜바 중세 주발라 되바외나 펜바 타다 주발라 소를 제일 하버라 어바네 자왈려 저와 뉴스 나면 세조와 계지 세점 진발 제바야 니제 니체 장와 제바야 개와 제와 이시 기비쿠로 셈제 장타 야라 듀린도 대화시게 대화라나면 일라 삼바타다 조제바 다도 진바 다시 메지고요.
And the second of the subheadings was that the person who benefits a little is worthy of praise, and therefore the person who gains great merit by establishing all happiness and benefit for others, then surely they are worthy of great praise also. This is covered in two verses, number 32 and 33, where it says, "The world honors as virtuous a man who sometimes gives a little plain food disrespectfully to a few beings that satisfies them for only half a day. What need be said then of one who eternally bestows the peerless bliss of the Sagatas upon limitless numbers of beings, thereby fulfilling all their hopes?"
Joa gasa joa nyungse ta joa nyungse te nyungla ta nyungse nyungjila nyungla ngobu ta ji ngobu kyuma de me ba ngobu kyuma na me se ta gyundu ko ya khala la se joa to an du geji re yu zam chila an kha se zam chi ba chimba ta an nie ba dang che ba ni che chang ba che ba yang 제와야 개와 제와 이제 기부도 미디 개와 지그다 미디 삼바 상보 열다 미몽골 펜도 지그다스 좋았다 배나 지금 배나 가시 대사 메게 칼라 메게 된들 로바 제조 왔다 뭐들전 그래서 답에 미디 삼바 상보 열에 미교부 몽골 로바 지그데 펜도 첨부 열었습니다 정와 개와 제와 이제 기부 코스 구나 다 셈제 장 타예 발라 뒤르고 어느 코 마동거 봐도 답에 미스지 계좌 말 코아마동 거 봐도 안 대화시게 대화라나 매바 대신 아나 일라 삼바 타다 일라 답라 그래서 타이베 마게 섬제되게 일라 삼바 타다 안 줘버쳐 봐 안 삼바다 좋았으면 뒤다도 집어치면 장선 단위 전부 남라네 나봐요 봐 다시 봐 나봐요 봐 다시 먹어 메치고 셔봐고
So here saying that you have the comparison between somebody who benefits a little, a very few number of people, such as giving them some cheap item or some tasteless item of food, just one time, and just in terms of like offering some food and doing so quite scornfully, so that kind of satisfies them for only half a day. And likewise, they have this attitude of, oh, I'm quite meritorious here. I'm doing something really beneficial. Whether it's offering somebody who is homeless a bed for the night, or helping out poor people with donations, that they have this kind of like quite conceited attitude with regard to it. That still that person is engaging in some virtuous activity, and that's fine. But then when you compare it, to somebody who takes, for example, all sentient beings and is willing to work for them to fulfill their purpose for such a long time, saying that until cyclic existence itself is emptied, and to be able to place them in the peerless bliss of the Sagatas, those who are gone to bliss, the Buddhas, and that to kind of bring whatever is wished for to fulfill for all sentient beings, and that mind, as well as the activities that are accompanying that motivation, are so powerfully good to be able to continuously give like that. You would say that such a person, such a being, is certainly goes without saying, worthy of high praise.
혹시 또 숨바 싱초도 주바 나봐요 발로 숨자 싱초도 주변에서 나봐요 발로 숨자 그다 장주 선바 중세 점야 매버서 미직베 중세 난 대바 공바직베 중세 대나 차스체 잡수 좋아 여봐 오셔 삽자 숨자 다 당보대 가서대 다 자주 선발라 중세 점야 매나 미리베 중센들라 중세의 자원래 같이 되게 제세 진다라 개대 년세 개바 제바데 년세 개베 장시 개바네 냐와 내바 주셔 투베 소스.
And the third of these initial set of outlines was that the supreme basis is worthy of praise. And this refers to actions and attitudes done in relation to bodhisattvas, those who are engaged in the practice of the trainings on the engaging mind of enlightenment. And so it's here, this has again 3 subheadings. And so one is that if we, I say, even slightly disparage a bodhisattva, how this is the reasoning why this is incorrect. And 2, the reasoning why faith in a bodhisattva is correct. And thirdly, then how the bodhisattva is a worthy object of our prostration and refuge. And from the root text, the first verse number 34 deals with the first of these subheadings, and that is how even a slight disparaging of a bodhisattva is incorrect and unworthy. Verse number 34. The Buddha has said that whoever bears an evil thought against the benefactor, such as that bodhisattva, will remain in hell for as many eons as there were evil thoughts.
다 심전 강시에서다 심전 수이마나 강시 펜데 타다 짐버제바 된데베 아니 다 게세 진달라서 짐베다 진달라 게데서 게딕 다딜 녀심 깨바이나 로다 컨트롤라 소바 마카와 깨바이나 깨바 제바 되니 다 디바 톱치모 살서 유케바 제자 디바 미세바 인데서 다 미세바 인데 가서 녀심 깨지 삼지 깨바이나야 개별 장신도 다 개별 장신도 다 개별 장신도 장대다 냠버 아니 개별 냐와네 고 주로서 두바사게 좀 되겠다.
And so here we're talking about the sentient being who is trying to give every benefit and happiness to all sentient beings. So like the benefactor who is a bodhisattva. So in that, say, take that situation. If one were to have a negative mind towards, like such as anger, for example, towards a person like that, saying that is an unbearable negativity. And that furthermore, it said for whatever number of moments that thought was sustained, for that many eons, one will have to bear the results of the hell realms, and that and so that's something that is being quoted from the words of the Buddha himself.
어디를 어디를 다가자 계속 다시 쳐볼라 아니 지금 가서다 다가자 지금 가서다 되네 아니 디바사바 이래 다 녀미 쳐봐 갔다 왔다 아니 들라 마구바 쳐봐다 아니 들라 저 콘도 사와다 들라 쳐봐 이나 아니 녀바 빠도 매바 사대 가서 유익해봐 지서 가서는 나라도 탐제게 더 주비에게 랑르다네 아니 나라도 더 주비에게 아니 저 가서다 된데게 셈께네 된데 지금 그다 제가 유익해봐 차대라 배나 차샤와이나 배나 소소라 세들라 배 진짜부터 소소 파말라 아니 지금 녀미쇼하다 파말라 지금 콘도 사와다 내가 깨봐이나 미셸라 제발 디바차 용거요. 가서는 소소라 하장의 진짜부 차대요. 어다 디나 시제 계속 다니 저보다 나라도 하장의 진짜부 차대도 아니 가서라 다 반자 딜라테데 아니 네바치부 사대도 용거요.
So here it's discussing the object here, and that how certain objects or bases become more potent in the context of karma, and that here, for example, if we are angry towards a bodhisattva, somebody who is tremendously beneficial, like a bodhisattva, or critical, harshly critical of them, and we kind of like disparage what they're doing, etc., etc. That this is very, very serious negativity. And the reason behind this is because that being is dedicated to our benefit, to the benefit of all, which includes us as well. And they're really striving to sustain that, not only that motivation, but to engage in the activities that back up that motivation as well. And so they become a very special object, and therefore actions done towards them in relation to them bear a very heavy karma. And so it's kind of saying in a different sense too, we can look at parents. Our parents also are a special object. And so if we have anger towards our parents, it counts much more seriously than, say, anger at anybody else, because our parents have been tremendously kind towards us. That has made them into a very special object. And so therefore, we have to be careful with regard to our actions in that sense.
아니 가서데 다 먼저 날 사지 마제베 콘라 아니 사비 불레 깨와시베 갑라 아니 배 주생라 디가서데 주생라 단다데 아니 다 노블랭가 조예 디젠 데저도 아니 아마 마단 만도스 가오데 아니 배 둘로를 주네 다 군은 만도스 라도 아니 배 콘두산에 nga 베드레스 조예 갈라 아니 캐랑 군이 뱅갈다 지금 가서라 오스피스 좀 남도 용거랬어 가서 다 가져도 아니 그냥 못해 나를 누그랬어 다 가서 땡땡을 추구랬어 뭐 땡땡자는 한국 똑바로 아마가 쉬어이 말거다 아마가 쉬네 이 쉬어라 땡 쉬네 아니 제일 주생의 간자스는 주생 더 주생식 간자스는 봐야 아니 주생의 신직을 튀어내 전대로 루바시바시 되나 봐봐잖아 아니 다다데 다 녀코에 냐와티데 칠레스 녀코에 냐와 고데데 칠레 아니 데레저 소소 고갈 콜로코데 콜로콜 베동에 빠도 매바죠 동에 빠도 매바죠 아니 디다 아마콜라 디슈베게 가서데 한국 똑바슈베게 남인기 아니 데네겐 아니 데네 이나야 남주 현다민다 요사리 안 데도 다 아메콜라 똑바슈데 레니 바사긴 컨데슈 바데 니에디 고초바 쇼스 아니 데네 아니 세표전 아니 야 가서데 되벨 할게도 데네게 아니 데네게 가서데 돈나라 데네 루주데 용구도 가자 당가제 파마를 녀미쇼나 현다민다 디바치 뭐 용대지 이나야 다가제 셈바상보께나 야 될 semba sambo jena ya tele ta tu tu jong do ta ka ya le ma go ta do ne ya de sambo le tu de yong do ta janju semba la ta dile ha pamale ha cha do janju semba se do 땡기 디기 두고 있어 봐 파마데 체디 소저 류 징겐다 퉁게 자기 배 자치 버렸다 얘네 다 자주 sem바다 컴페리오 말바다 안 딜라 법에 아니 네바 톱차 용 되게 도와.
So to illustrate this point as to how potent the behaviors towards our parents are, there is a story related in the sutras as to concerning the previous lives of the Buddha when he was still on the path, and in relation to, he had a conflict with his mother, and as a result of that argument, he picked up a shoe and threw it at his mother and struck her on the head. Now, as a result of that, then he was reborn as a being in a kind of hell where he had attached to his own head crown a circle, a metal kind of a circle that was causing tremendous pain constantly. But it's also reported that later he developed the beneficial thought that anybody who was suffering as a result of insulting or hurting their own mother, may it all ripen upon me now. And as a result of how genuine that motivation was, the affliction was lifted, and he was reborn in the desire realm, celestial realms. And so this is related in the sutras as well. And so it's really saying that the kind of like relationship we have with our parents is important, and it's very crucial that we are always kind and appreciative and beneficial towards our parents, because of course that produces the opposite power of karma for us as well. So that's important, but of course that we should have that appreciation in any case. And it's but it's comparing this to also again the being who is living according to the mind of enlightenment. And it's saying here they have the benefit of all sentient beings in their motivation, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to fulfill the goal of all sentient beings. And so in that respect, there is no comparison between the kindness of parents and the kindness of those who are living according to the mind of enlightenment.
다들의 인바이다 수수 자주 사바 인바 아주 셰싱 말이 자주 사바스게 심지가 되는 주에 저도 아니 지가서도 지가 남바민자와 나서바잖요 패디게 패디도 아니 뭐지 뭐 맞죠 말이야 뭐 맞죠 말이도 다 개치줘야 돼 아니 다 가서래 삽사치디 개치 뭐 임라다 심지 탐제를 다 간제지 가서 단다데 가서데 구바체바이나 아니 고 자주 선바 이메 기저 강가를 구바체 아니 저 데르서 구바체는 좋아 이마나 아니 다 소소 녀바디게도 고투 그래 아니 딜라테네 아니 소소 가서다 가서도 녀모디게도 마게 펜토그로 와 자주 선바스게도 메테오 메나시레소라 메테오 저메 탈라 인데 kapshana wala me interested me mamu te en kala thala kapshana me thungu marwa wada tin me te na me na shire kawa yimi de shema shi marwa an tin za ko kaso de re ta ka ja ji so so ge lunga yisu ya bo tom chene en kangal ku ba cheba ina ani ko nyaba sa marwa hodire.
And so therefore, because we do not know, we cannot recognize who is and who is not a bodhisattva, it's best to assume that all are bodhisattvas, and then certainly to adopt an attitude of respect towards all as a matter of course. And that's simply good sense, isn't it? And so it's kind of like that's what we try to do. We can't know from our perception, we're very limited. And that is that person that looks so ordinary, motivated by the wish to fulfill the purpose of all sentient beings, and are living their lives accordingly, we cannot know that. So best not to take any chances, respect all in order to avoid negativity as a given, but also to avoid the opportunity for a mental affliction to arise as well, which is a very useful habit to get into. And so it's kind of explained in terms of an image that the Bodhisattva is like, especially somebody living with the Bodhisattva attitude, the mind of enlightenment, is like the fire, the embers of a fire that is unseen because it's covered by ashes on top. And so it's still very alive and very potent underneath there, but it's not visible because of the ashes on top. So that's something we should be aware of, the fire beneath, even if we can't see it directly.
다들 그 로조 지게바서 칸다 수다 쪽에서 다니 콜레만 다시 셀라 사바타바 라레 초도 심바쇼 소다디 소나 신체잖아 아니 제 강가로 그바체 what is the situation 니가 메르와 what is on 페요사.
And so as it says in the 8 verses for mind training, treat all sentient beings, wherever I go, wherever I meet, as because of the Yishinobu Lakpa.
말해 간다 수다 쪽에서 수녀도 좋아이나 간다 수다 쪽 다니 콜레면다 소소 셈발레 안 멤바다리.
Oh, I see myself lower. Yeah, that whoever I'm with, I see myself lower than all other sentient beings. Hold that sense of respect automatically for others.
Shela Sabatawai, Rale Chodas, Zimbashos, Shela Sabatato, same dinner, that's acting my same dinner, Rale Chodas, but Rale, how about you much done?
And from the depths of my mind, to see them as a supreme, not just pretending that is the case. Not just a facsimile of kind of respect, but genuinely. Yes. So I had the thought to finish this chapter, but we seem to have run short of time for the moment, so we'll leave it at that.
Lama tuan doji chang, da lama shaja singe what kon lama shaja san da rangi chuo de la da kan je nyen jo da chunde ani pema tama che ani tena toni do be chunde de la ani ni me jing go che ja ju sem go chunde da da wei jing go de ko ba che what ko ba chen den ba de zhe lama da chuo be de ka je ku su do yong zu za du sun de dang bi kwa su ke ni be ga zu shu sun be ga dem shu san de ko ba ma do ba de je su da ya gu shi wu zhong su san zhe ko ba xie ani wo de zhe da kan je ya la du ba mian zhe da che wa pu wo de zhe
And so then we turn to our visualization in the space in front, and we prepare to invite them to our crown. First of all, we establish the lotus, sun, and moon disk mandala seat by reflecting on renunciation, from which rises the lotus mandala seat, and then the notion of emptiness, from which arises the sun disk and the mind of enlightenment itself to establish the moon disk. And then we recite the invocation verse thrice to bring about that the invitation. Oh, glorious and precious root Guru, come take a lotus and moon seed placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the replica body begins the journey towards our crown. At the end of the second, they arrive to be seated on our prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have the absolute certainty that they will remain with us until we attain the state of enlightenment. And then we make the offering of the 7 limb practices and the mandala.
제 조금만 제 안다가니 제 뒤지 밥자도 제전 딱간제 어디를 제 요번 어디를 제다 이내 다 뒤지 매버 인사 아니 라기 되는 연중의 섬 연중 지금 예바 주 연중 섬르스타 콜링 예바 주 연중 섬르타 아니 된대 예베 로데 아니 라기 니데 페마다 게질 교수 선서 공부하셔 되네 그래서도 지난 그 추가 제스트번에 유대는 좀 뒤상 요마리스 그래서 때는 좋아인데 유대는 맞고 다르스 유대는 맞고 인자 다 용다네 때는 좋아하면 더 좋습니다. 그래서 아니 유대는 맞고 다가는 게 콜라 삼로탄에 아니 딩예벨 로티 아니 님의 친구들 교수 삼삼체 되네 다 간자 그다 심제가 참제가 또 산제 고마 맞으면 타면도 예봐도 토바치게 되 유한이도 토바치기 서서 어떤 공부시에 텐데 그 로티 텐데 그 tum바티 아니 가서 다외 친구 약하와치를 교수 서대 님의 친구 내수 삼사체 아니 되나 반대자가 뭐는 다른 인가 배우다 그런 구조도 좀 무조건 근데 순대 잡을 때는 아니 랑게 집어게 아니 라마샤자 생겼던 안 집어네 맞추네 랑게 인가 것들 내수 담배 가서 패 니가 가서 수배 때도 산제 고마 마도 봐도 제수 어디를 공부시
So at this point then, with the Guru Buddha on our crown, we can, as I said, offer the 7 limb practices and mandala. But furthermore, we can use the descending nectar light meditation, again to bring our minds to focus with placement and meditation on the heart center of the Buddha and the various lights entering into asana, purifying and so on, and offering conducive conditions for practice, and that this can continue and meditate in that sense. And then we begin the preparation of the same lotus sun and moon disc mandala seat at our heart center. And here focusing on generating the lotus mandala seat through contemplation of renunciation, reflecting on the kind of cyclic existence, the nature, being in the nature of suffering, that powerful desire to gain definite release from that, and this notion of wanting to attain liberation from cyclic existence, making manifest this lotus mandala seed. And then further reflecting on emptiness and looking into the notion of self, entity within the body, mind, going through the meditation, not reaching any conclusion with regard to that, and that realizing that there is this lack of an independent existing self, and therefore that inevitably implies that all phenomena arise in dependence. It can't be any other way, and from this ascertainment manifests the sun disk on our seat at our heart center. And furthermore, then the mind of enlightenment, the thought of, that because of the notion of dependence, I can establish all the causes to attain the state of enlightenment. And I really now really kind of like really push this to quickly be able to attain this state of enlightenment. Why? Because I can then best be able to benefit all sentient beings. And this mind of enlightenment then manifests in the moon disk mandala seed. So we have now the established seat at our heart center, and so we again recite the invocation verse thrice. O glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon disk placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. And so with the end of the first, the Guru Buddha on our crown begins the journey down through our central channel. At the end of the second recitation, the Guru Buddha has arrived to be seated at this prepared seat at our heart center. And at the end of the third, again, we have the certainty of their remaining until we ourselves attain the state of enlightenment.
지도 잠에 생각 엄다리 두다리 둘서 엄다리 두다리 둘서 엄다리 두다리 둘서 되고 되네 되네가 오면 예다마 해도 저다는 마샤만에 있어 되네 나 숨가 거티게서 되지 공부시네 아니 닝그 유수 네베 아니 라마투안 가서 라마샤자 생기게 아니 구송 토레 외세 트네 랑이 집어네 강디가 발라 외세 트네 아니 랑게 딱간제 저거 가서네 딱간제 소주바다 마진바다 바다 아니 미상어 줘봐 다른 주연 참아 지종 가제 낙서 뇌서 록달라 소베 아니 저 소다가 도마다 가와 다간에 장주스베 라바다 가와 상하게 담진다 가와 다간에 신게 아니 지금 제백 하나마도다 도나 제백 하나마다 라식 하나마도베 딱간제 세디엄 생가마 토마 매번 서베 디바 간제 지어봐 이네 아니 장진 딱바지 중수 선조 워든데 공부시 아니 다가리 생각 가서래 아니 지금 최주배 개개 아니 지금 중화식 그 많이 봐 다가리 루게 나서 아니 지금 담아다 가리여봐 되게 그거 봤상네 아니 다가리 생각 지금 중식 그 많이 중식 그 많이 봐샤 아니 자롱 티리 겨디데 겨디게 파장네 아니 지금 가나 탄자 딱바라시 파 차도에서 다가지 그 말아도 지금 가서 타바다 탐제 김에 객치시대 탐에게 나시 차디고 탐에 나시 꽤 탐제잖아 가나다 이제 딱 바로 저 바지 차도 나 야구시고 종수 서서 어디에 공부하셔
So, and then following the arrival establishment of the Guru Buddha at our heart center, the petals of the lotus now fold over and are sealed at the point where they meet with a 5-pronged white vajra. And then around that packaging is the following mantras of the mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination in a clockwise direction. And this then triggers this tremendous flow of light from the Guru Buddha within, permeating through those petals, and indeed again pulsing through to permeate our entire body from the crown of our head to the soles of our feet. And it becomes completely filled with the purifying light that purifies all the negativities and obscurations that we have accumulated since the beginning of time, centering it on the likes of the 10 non-virtuous activities of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, of lying, and then harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip, of covetousness, malicious intent, and wrong view, and covering all of the infractions of the Prati Moksha vows that we have taken, all of the downfalls with regard to our Bodhisattva vows and the downfalls with regard to our Tantric vows, purifying all the naturally occurring negativities and all the negativities occurred from what has been proscribed by the Buddha. And indeed, also dealing with any imperfections, impurities within our 4 elements, are the faults relating to our channels, winds and drops, and they are all rebalanced and realigned, and particularly dealing with what is the main obstacle to our quickly being able to attain enlightenment is this debilitating perception of ordinary perception, and that's dealt with when we are able to see with pure perception. And so, following this, we really rejoice in this kind of really powerful cleansing.
아니 소소기다 신도 타외 롱디 녀랭게체 라마 샤자스게 꾸딜 현지 제겐체네 소소르데 라마 샤자스게 꾸르 조수 섬섬체 문에 꾸르 조수 섬섬체 소소 신도 타외 셈데 녀레자 라마 샤자스게 투데 현지 제겐체네 소소기 셈데 라마 샤자스게 투르 조수 랑게 룽아 유스다 라마 샤자스게 구송투 뭐 예메 차수 섬섬체.
And so then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is automatically transformed into the enlightened body of a Buddha. Then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is now transformed into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. And so I see myself now of body, speech, and mind as being inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha.
And
And the place I'm in is completely divested of all its fault and impurities and transformed into a pure realm.
And Lama Shaja Singh Kurjube, Kusuto, Yeme Jube, Tugale, and Lama Shaja Singh, Padu never turn, and if Kamsung Simja Tamjala Posos, Kamsung Simja Tamjala de Povata, and the Tatanja Jimiza, Tony Zone, and Lama Shaja Singh Komala go to a Chunsu, Kusuto, Yeme Jusu, the Dag Net Tamjaja, New Gun Tamjatan, and the Kasurata, Dabish to Jusu, so what the commercial.
And then viewing myself as a fully enlightened being with my body, speech, and mind, inseparable from that of an enlightened being, I send out countless rays of light from my own heart center, going out to all the realms of existence. And upon touching all sentient beings there, they are spontaneously freed of all negativity and obstacle, and completely spontaneously arise as enlightened beings. The places that they find themselves in also are divested of all fault and impurity, and are transformed into pure realms.
Oh, that's some jet Tamja Lama Shaja Singh Komalo cookie is a Tanima Deriko to Tayabu Shuchu.
So we conclude that today is the day in which I have been able to fulfill the purpose of all sentient beings, leading them all to that state of enlightenment. And how marvelous that is. I totally rejoice.
And some jet Tamja Lama Shaja Singh Kulokova, and it did to which the Sosu Kawa Juba, and it took a Soso the Chavaka, you did the Majuba, Tokwe Pata Sabri, Sinakomacha.
And that all these sentient beings who I have led to that state of enlightenment, all the causes that have been established to lead to that result, and I as the agent engaging in the creation of those causes are completely lacking of any objective existence and are merely imputed by thought. This brings forth a sense of bliss which combines with emptiness, and I avoid in the emptiness the wisdom of non-dual bliss and emptiness. And so, of course, I'm only operating at the level of imagination here. This is not actually manifest, but I certainly make a sincere dedication that I can quickly establish all of the conducive conditions and get rid of all of the inconducive conditions to make this happen as quickly as possible. Shingam, Penang, the Wama, Tenre, Zigong, Tengen, Shakti, Site, Gong Chen Be Tu Chen Tao Ga Lo Sang Rai Sha Lo So Big Gong Chen Ken Tu Chen Tong Ga Lo San Drai He Shang Lo So You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, not in the true existence, and Manjeshwari, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception, Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages, a land of snows, Rosam Drakpa, at your feet, I make requests.
Okay, thank you very much.